welcome to Health Live at Seniors today. We have here with us Dr. Rajiva Gupta. Dr. Gupta has been with us twice over the past, and it is a pleasure to have him here. I will introduce Dr. Gupta first. Dr. Gupta is a senior consultant in internal medicine and diabetes with an experience spanning over 4 decades. He did his MBBS from the Maulana Azad Medical College in New Delhi and his MD from the Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital, also in New Delhi. And he has done a postgraduate program in diabetology from Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine in the US and a specialized certificate course of from the International School of Diabetes. Dr. Gupta has currently a consultation practice as his private clinic in Gurugram, as well as he's attached with the CK Birla hospitals in Gurugram and Punjabi Bagh. He has been practicing earlier at his clinic in Ashok Vihar, and he's been affiliated.
Double voice, again. Double voice.
Like Fortis Hospital, Shalimar Bagh, Max at Shalimar Bagh, Delhi Heart and Lung Institute in New Delhi. So it's always good to have Dr. Rajiva Gupta here with us. And given the extreme weather conditions that we had, I called Dr. Gupta last week, and I requested him if he can speak with us on dealing with extreme weather conditions. As you know, some parts of the country, Delhi, for instance, has and the outskirts of Delhi have had absolutely bizarre levels of temperature, 52, 53, and I'm sure some parts maybe even more, we don't know. But the fact of the matter is that it's very, very worrying. And just as you have extreme climate, extreme heaty conditions now in the winter, it gets extremely cold. And in cities like even in Mumbai, for instance, where we've never really needed to have woolens, we wait for the Tibetans to come over. Earlier, the indicator of extreme cold, or even a bit of the cold, were the presence of the Tibetans on the footpaths of in some parts of the city. But now one needs to get some woolens because sometimes it does get cold by Mumbai standard, not really by what it is in other parts of the country. So that's our request to Dr. Gupta. He's here with us, and we would request him to start talking. Welcome to Health Live at Seniors today. Dr. Gupta, how are you?
I'm good, and it is a pleasure to be once again with you.
And how's the weather? How's the weather for you?
See, lately the temperature started coming down, and it's a little more pleasant than what it used to be, say, about a week or 10 days back.
Right.
It's not that scorching or not that biting now.
Yeah, that's, I think, I know we should have had the session last week, but we were, it's just that we had a few other things planned. Yeah, so Delhi, as I see this, is 40 degrees right now. Mumbai is 32. Bangalore is 25. London, or Scotland, where Mr. Ketapal is around 17. Over to you, Dr. Gupta. So we'll have a 15-20 minute presentation by Dr. Gupta. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A tab as always, and we will have Dr. Gupta address it.
Yeah, so there is an unprecedented heat wave in India this time. And India saw nearly 25,000 cases of suspected heat stroke, out of which 56 people lost their lives after the heat wave swept across the country in March, April, and May. And May has been a particularly bad month, especially for the northern regions, Delhi, NCR, Rajasthan, where the temperature touched almost 50 degrees centigrade, which broke all the records. So this is a very recent news of June 3rd. So why is it happening that these heat waves are becoming common? Because the climate change is causing global temperatures to rise, leading on to more frequent and intense heat waves. Heat wave is a period of excessively hot weather, which typically lasts several days. In India, they typically start from March and extend to June, and rarely may extend up to July. These events can last for weeks and impact large population in a short period of time. The meteorological department has defined the heat waves if the maximum temperature of a state reaches at least 40 degrees for plains and at least 30 degrees or more for hilly regions for at least 2 consecutive days. Before understanding the effects and the management of heat waves, we ought to know that how does the body stay cool? The process that helps our body to keep a healthy temperature is called thermoregulation. Thermo means heat and regulation is regulation. And this thermoregulation is controlled by a region of our brain which is called the hypothalamus. So what happens is when the skin gets hot, the hypothalamus in the brain gets activated and it activates the receptors which are there in the skin and they trigger sweat production and there is a blood dilatation of the blood vessels. So this helps to dissipate the heat and maintain the normal body temperature. So this is sort of a balance. The external temperature, even if it rises, but the body, the nature has devised mechanisms inside our body wherefrom the temperature remains constant. So what causes heat illnesses? So they are called heat-related illnesses or heat illnesses. They are caused by excessive heat that increases our body's core temperature. And heat could come from exercises, from being inside a closed space, hot space, or from very hot weather. Now, when the body gets hot, as we discussed earlier, it relies on the evaporation of sweat to make the heat go away. But if the humidity is also high, and especially if it is more than 60%, the process of sweating becomes less efficient and it evaporates less. So the body temperature rises and it's an equation. So if the absorption of heat is more than the dissipation, the body temperature starts rising. And heat illness occurs when the body can't get rid of heat. At the same time, the salt and water balance is disrupted and the temperature rises. So the adverse effects of excessive heat or heat-related illnesses accrues from the temperature, which leads on to loss of water and salt from the body. What are the health impacts of heat? Hot weather can be bad for our health. When it's hot for a long time, it can make us sick. It can happen to a lot of people very quickly. So that is the thing, that because the weather is uniformly bad, so a lot of people may fall sick quickly. The rapid rises in heat gained due to exposure to hotter than average conditions can result in a cascade of illnesses. So we start with heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. At the same time, the excessive temperatures, they may worsen chronic conditions, including cardiovascular, heart conditions, respiratory conditions, brain conditions, renal diseases, diabetes, etc. Extreme heat can also lead to death or hospitalization. This can happen quickly or it can take a few days. We'll delve upon these in subsequent in the talk. Then there are indirect effects. Hot weather can also have a number of negative economic effects. For example, it can result in lost work capacity, lower productivity, increased healthcare costs, damage to infrastructure, and reduced agricultural output. So the direct effects of heat on the body or the physiological systems, as well as indirect effects on the economy. Heat illness is one which is caused while exercising or working for prolonged periods in high heat and humidity without rest or adequate fluid intake. So there are milder types of heat-related illnesses, the heat rash, the heat cramps, and the severe types are the heat exhaustion and the heat stroke. Heat rash is also called prickly heat or miliaria, which is a stinging skin irritation and the skin becomes red. It happens when excessive sweat gets trapped under the skin and it blocks the sweat glands. Heat cramps occur when one is sweating too much, lose salts, electrolytes, water, and it gives rise to cramps. It usually happens when somebody exercises in the heat. So many people come and they come from outside and they get exhausted or tired, and sometimes they develop cramps or aching sensation in the limbs. That is heat cramps. The severe types are heat exhaustion, which is caused by too few fluids and long hours in high temperatures, causes heavy sweating a fast and weak pulse, and rapid breath. Heat stroke is the next step, is the next serious condition, which is a life-threatening illness and happens when the temperature rises above 106 degrees centigrade, and it deteriorates, the condition deteriorates very quickly, maybe within minutes. What are the risk factors for heat illnesses? People at risk are the construction workers who work outside, athletes if they start doing their workouts in that heated environment, military personnel, firefighters, farmers, maintenance or utility workers. And environmental risk factors are lack of experience working in the heat or working outdoors or doing heavy work. Then age, infants and young children, adults 65 years or older, people who are having medical conditions like heart, kidney, blood pressure, ongoing fever, obesity, poor physical fitness, pregnancy. A lot of medications, if people are on these types of medication, they are more prone to heat-related illnesses, like different types of tranquilizers, diuretics, the drugs which cause excessive urination, which may be given for conditions of the heart or for blood pressure. Because people who are on the diuretics, they may be dehydrated, and exposure to high temperatures can exacerbate their dehydration. Antihistaminics, they also got the dryness. Antihistamines like anti-allergic drugs like Avil or Benadryl. Beta blockers, they are used in cardiac conditions and hypertension. Laxatives, drugs used to treat neurological issues. Dehydration, if one is already dehydrated, that means don't have enough fluids in your body, we are more at a risk of heat-related illness. Clothing, heavy clothing, dark clothing, tight clothing. Activity level, wearing heavy equipment or clothing, for example, sports padding, helmets, uniforms, industrially protective equipment. And a person who has already had a previous heat illness, he or she is more prone to develop it once again. So we come to the milder types of heat-related illnesses, the heat rash. The first thing is move to a cool place, ideally somewhere with air conditioning, take a cool shower or bath, gently pat the dry skin and avoid rubbing it because rubbing may cause more irritation. Loose fitting, breathable clothing made from natural fibers like cotton. Avoid applying lotions or creams or ointment that clog the pores. And if the rash is severe and doesn't improve within a few days, one should see the dermatologist or a doctor. They may recommend a calamine lotion or a low-dose steroid cream to help relieve itching and inflammation. And for prevention, we should avoid strenuous activity in hot, humid weather. Drink plenty of fluids to stay hydrated and apply a cool compress to the affected area for short periods. The next milder variety is the heat cramps. They are painful muscle cramps that occur during or after exercise in hot weather. They are caused by loss of fluids and electrolytes through sweating and exaggerated by replacing only water, not the salt. Symptoms are muscle cramps in the legs, arms, or abdomen. The skin is cool and moist, normal temperature. Treatment is again move to a cool place and rest. Remove excessive clothing and apply cool clothes to the skin. Drink cool fluids with electrolytes. A lot of electrolytes may be there, like electrol is there, or you can add salt to Nibu Pani. Gently stretch cramped muscles. Seek medical attention if the cramps are severe or persist, or if the symptoms of the next in the cascade, heat absorption or heat stroke, set in. Coming to heat exhaustion is a more severe than heat cramps and results from a loss of water as well as salt in the body. It occurs with prolonged exertion in extreme heat and humid weather with excessive sweating. So it is hot and sweating without adequate water and salt replacement. It occurs when the body is unable to cool itself properly, and if left untreated can progress to heat stroke. So there is heat cramps, heat exhaustion, heat stroke. The symptoms are, as the name suggests, muscle cramps, pale, moist skin, nausea, fatigue, anxiety, and feeling of faintness. Heart rate may be high, temperature may be high, headache, and weakness. The basic treatment everywhere is move the person out of the heat into a cool place. If possible, get them into an air-conditioned room. If air conditioning is not available, find a shady spot and use fan. Lay the person down and elevate the legs. The elevation of the legs will improve with blood circulation. Loosen or remove any tight clothing. This will help in bringing the temperature down. Cool the person down by sponging them with water, giving them a cool shower, or placing cool wet clothes on the forehead and the groin. Give the person a lot of fluids to drink, sip on a cool water drink, avoid giving them alcohol or caffeine as these can cause dehydration. Monitor the body's temperature. If the temperature is 102 or above, continue cooling, and if it doesn't come down, then we should seek medical attention. Once the person is feeling better, encourage them to rest in a cool place for many hours and avoid strenuous activity for the rest of the day. If the person doesn't improve after 30 minutes of home treatment, or if they experience any of the following symptoms, then one should report to an emergency. The red flags are vomiting, diarrhea, confusion, seizures, loss of consciousness, because these are signs of impending heat stroke, which is a very serious condition. Heat stroke is the most severe form of heat illness, occurs when the body's temperature regulating system fails due to excessive heat. It's a life-threatening emergency and requires immediate medical attention. Now, the difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke is that heat exhaustion, it is moist and hot. In heat stroke, the skin is hot and dry because the temperature regulation mechanism has totally failed. High fever, usually above 104, rapid heart rate, vomiting, confusion, loss of appetite, nausea, headache, fatigue, restlessness, lethargy, loss of consciousness, and if untreated, it may result in death. The treatment is essentially in the hospital. You should call the emergency services, move the person to a cool, shady area, remove any excessive clothing, cool the person down by immersion in cool water, but not iced water, because ice water will further constrict the blood vessels and prevent the dissemination of the heat. Spraying or sponging with cool water, fanning them while misting them with cool water, place ice packs on cool, wet towels. So these are ice packs, not direct ice. If the person is conscious, give them cool foods to drink, water or a sports drink. Do not give alcohol or caffeine because they will aggravate dehydration. Do no medication unless under medical supervision. Try to cool them too quickly with ice baths because again that will result in vasoconstriction and the constriction of the vessels and impede the loss of the dissipation of heat. In countries like ours, where there is these problems like heat stroke are also there, heat exhaustion are there, as well as the communicable diseases like malaria, dengue, etc. So in the medical setup, there is evaluation for these conditions also to be done concurrently with the treatment of heat stroke. Heat illnesses are preventable. Hydration is the key. Drink plenty of fluids, especially water before, during, or after physical activity or hot exposure to hot weather. Avoid sugary drinks, alcohol, and caffeine because they dehydrate. Drink water every 15 minutes when working or exercising in a hot environment, even if one is not thirsty. And a rule of thumb is if you need to be in extreme heat over 103 degrees, drink about 4 glasses, 2 to 4 glasses, 500 ml to 1 liter of water each hour. The best thing is if somebody wants to go for a workout, to go for a walk and the temperature is high. Practical, one should have adequate water, maybe around 2 liters just before starting from the home, so that one is well hydrated. Remember that the body also needs electrolytes, not just water. So electrolytes can be given from the common drinks, electrol or lemon water or fruit juices along with salt. Cool, seek shade or air-conditioned spaces during peak, typically 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Take cool showers or baths and use fans when air conditioning isn't available. Schedule the vigorous activity and sports for cooler times of the day. Take rest periods in shady or cool areas. Avoid going outdoors for activities or exercise when the temperature and humidity are high. Dress for the heat, loose fitting, lightweight, light colored clothing that allows for breathability and sweat evaporation. Sun protection is also important. Sunscreens may be used, a wide brimmed hat, sunglasses to prevent sunburn, which can worsen heat illness. It can also dehydrate further. Take breaks, frequent breaks in shaded or cool areas, especially during physical activity. Vulnerable individuals like small children, elderly, and people with certain medical conditions, they need to be carefully monitored, and we should ensure that they stay hydrated and cool. You should be aware of the signs of heat exhaustion and heat stroke like heavy sweating, weakness, dizziness, nausea, headache, confusion. Acclimatization, if one is not used to hot weather, gradually increase outdoor time to allow the body to adjust. What is the prognosis or outlook for people who have heat illnesses? Patients adequately cooled within 30 minutes will likely have an excellent outlook. If one has a heat rash, heat cramps, or heat exhaustion, the recovery could take place quickly after treatment. If heat stroke is there, it may take a few days to recover, and one may be more sensitive to hot conditions for another week. How long it takes one to recover depends on the age, the general physical condition, and how quickly one receives medical care. So the duration of the high temperature is the key to the outcomes. So again and again, hydration, moving to a cool place, release of the tight clothings, that is the most important method to treat in the home. So we'll conclude by the take-home message. Hot weather and activity can overwhelm the body's cooling systems, leading to heat illnesses. They range from mild rash to life-threatening heat stroke with cramps and exhaustion in between. One should stay hydrated, avoid midday sun, dress cool to prevent it. Watch for dizziness, fatigue, or high fever signs to cool down and help if needed. If anyone can get it, but some are at more risk, like young children and elderly people, one should play it safe in the heat. We should stay cool and remain healthy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, for this session. Very detailed. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, for the session, for your presentation. We have a few questions that have come in. Doctor, you mentioned about going to the hospital when there is when one is fearing a heat stroke. But even reaching the hospital because distances are not too short, is there any danger in reaching the hospital? While reaching the hospital, what should one take?
See, I think the best thing would be, because for a lay person, it's very difficult to distinguish whether somebody is having a heat exhaustion or heat stroke. So the best thing is if you try this. So there are red flags. Red flags means alteration of consciousness or extreme fatigue, lethargy. So those are the signs which anybody would recognize and rush to the hospital. And if the patient is conscious, we should be able to. And if the patient is conscious, we should give them liquids to drink while on way to the hospital. But the best thing is that if we find that our home treatment is not getting successful, the person still complains of aches and cramps and uneasiness, I think still it is worthwhile to take the person to the hospital where they can be assessed objectively, maybe given a few drips and medicines to reduce temperature, some cooling may be done. So that would be a more preemptive. I think acting preemptively would be better.
A question that's come in is, Doctor, I have diabetes, and is it okay to take electrolytes like Electral, or should one just take Nimbu Pani?
So either can be taken, because see, for a few 1 or 2 days, even if the sugar gets upset, it doesn't matter. But the priority would take upon the management of the dehydration and things, they would take a priority over anything else. So what maximum we can do is that we should monitor our sugar more frequently and take care of our hydration. In fact, here I would like to mention that there are some medicines which are called SGLT2 inhibitors. One must have heard their names like empagliflozin, dapagliflozin, and things like this, which cause a lot of diuresis, and they also cause dehydration. So irrespective of the temperature, we always give advice. So whoever is on these types of anti-diabetic drugs, we ask them to take a lot of water to prevent dehydration. Because as we grow, our balancing systems become very vulnerable and they are on the borderline. So as we said, that people who are having chronic medical conditions, so they have to be very careful and be hydrated adequately, and so that is the prevention.
Right. Doctor, we have a question. My nephrologist has suggested that I should not take too much of water after 6 o'clock in the evening. And what should one do to keep hydrating oneself?
So see, this statement would apply for normal circumstances. Like a person now, it's a very blanket. I mean, some nephrologist's advice, so that would depend upon the baseline renal function of that individual. So in such an emergency, again the priority becomes uh, the treatment of the underlying condition. And if one wants to be very sure and want to be very preemptive, then if the symptoms are like that and somebody is feeling not well, and if the vitals are also say upset, if you check our temperature or pulse and it is high, then the best thing would be go to the hospital or get in touch with the nephrologist, and then we can give oral or IV fluids in a controlled manner. Because these are exceptional circumstances, so there those regulations or those stringent things wouldn't apply, because it would be contrary. Suppose a person who is having a renal problem and he's getting dehydrated, so the kidney function would worsen.
Right. Doctor, I know your presentation did touch upon some of this, but uh, there's a question that has come in. Doctor, are there some things which are an absolute no-no in terms of food that one should have? For instance, mangoes are supposed to be heaty, but they are available only in the summers. So should one have them or not?
Of course, there is no, see, heat-related illnesses that don't have anything to do with what we eat. They are directly related. Functions is age, vulnerable people, the type of people who work outside. The third is not identifying the early signs of heat exhaustion or heat cramps and not acting upon them. So that is what is to be taken. See, mangoes, I mean, there is nothing to prevent or anything that will come in the way of treatment of heat exhaustion or causing any effect, causative or otherwise. So I think
Doctor, on a lighter note, I must tell you that almost in every other session that we do in this season, there's a question being asked about mangoes. Are mangoes can they be had or not? So I guess this is the same person who's asked this question about mangoes, whether one can have mangoes or not. Um, Doctor, you mentioned about if a person has a routine of going for a walk or to the gym, etc., and of course one even as a process of that one does hydrate oneself. But is there any special suggestion that you would like to give to people?
see,
Because
what I do personally, I mean, I'm very fond of walking, and we see in Gurgaon it's pretty hot, and so you leave the home, wear a cap. I mean, put a sunscreen and drink. I mean, maybe around 1 to 1.5 liters of water before going outside. In the gym, there is no problem because gyms are closed and they all of them have ACs and they also have water at disposal. So one can do, and I think one may restrict, say, the time outside in the hot environment may be restricted. It depends upon how much one is walking.
right.
But half an hour would be a reasonable time, and half an hour wouldn't cause if you're well hydrated and you would walk for 30 minutes and come back. Obviously, jogging in that time, 40-45 degrees would not be advisable because that would also increase heart rate and maybe the amount of fluid which may be required that may not be replenished. But I'm sure there must be athletes who they have their water with them and then they go out for jogging also. I found people have restricted, they were in here, a lot of people are very enthusiastic with the bicycle. They used to do in Gurgaon, they used to do 30-40 kilometers, but then they restrict. I had a word with them, so then no, we are going to too hot. So some ways the moderation has to be done. And if time is there, you can split your walking time in the morning and evening. Evening is relatively better.
Thankfully, the cricket season is over. At least in India, the IPL season is over. So at least that sporting activity which is there, which is very strenuous, is not happening. But I'm sure there are people uh, who are uh, who are getting ready for the Olympics later this year, though they may have already gone to other parts of the world. But thank you very much, Doctor. We have a couple of questions that have come in, just come in. Um this is an anonymous attendee who says, my daughter, 33, has a history of slight nose bleeding during the summer. This is concerning a non-senior, but I'm still asking because it's relevant.
See,
But this
nose,
she had profuse
nose,
nose bleeding.
no,
She
nose
had
bleeding
approached,
has to be managed on its own merits.
right. She had approached the doctor, but the reason couldn't be assessed. Uh, all right. So you mentioned that, and her BP is normal. Uh, Doctor, this is a question from Mr. Narendra Shah, who says, my wife is 68. She gets a lot of sweating what is the solution? Please guide.
Excessive sweating is I mean, there's a big list of causes. So the common, if you ask me, some people have excessive sweating right from very early childhood, which is called hyperhidrosis, because these sweat glands are more active. Because there are a lot of causes. One is that the common medical problems is hyperthyroidism, where the thyroid function is more. So one needs to investigate for that. Then somebody's who's uh, exhaustion. I mean, some underlying cardiac problem is there where the cardiac function is not good. So basically, we have to rule out any underlying medical condition. Any one of them can cause sweating, because sweating is basically an autonomic response. Uncontrolled autonomic means which is controlled from the brain and which is not in our control. So those things have to be taken care of. One has to investigate if it really is truly excessive. Even anxiety, some people are always on the edge, very anxious. They may also have a lot of anxiety and moist palms. It's a very broad field, and it has to be seen on an individual basis. It may not be a disease, or it may be an illness on its own.
Right. Thank you. We have one question which is from Hannah J. Is detox water of great help in dehydration cases?
I can get it. Water?
Is detox water of great help in dehydration cases?
How is water helpful?
Is detox water?
Detox water. See, I don't know whether there is only scientific validation or not. So many people, what they do is say, fill up a jar with water and put something like tulsi or cucumber or cut oranges, something. So, I mean, they may just be benefit, but what scientific, I mean, I'm not aware of it. So, whether detox, I think water itself is a detox. If you had a good amount of adequate water intake, that itself is detox. And there's nothing special you have to add or something.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you very much for this very detailed session. It is much in demand from our readers who requested us to do this. So thank you very much for taking time off for doing this presentation for our readers and for answering all the questions. As always, this session will be there on the Seniors Today website on Monday evening. So please take a look at that. You will also be able to read the takeaways. So doctor's suggestions for heat strokes will be there. I know temperatures have reduced. Delhi, as I just checked, was 40 degrees. So not significantly reduced, but it has reduced. But keep this in mind for the next year when the summer strikes again, or if you have any family and friends who are in place zones where it is getting very hot. So please keep the suggestions in mind and do share it with as many people as possible. As always, we are there every Saturday at 5 p.m. and we will be back once again next Saturday. That is the 15th of June at 5 p.m. And please log in. You can pre-register for our health webinars. The link is there in the chat, so you can do that. And I must thank all of you here, and I must thank Dr. Gupta for being here. We complete 4 years of our health webinar. We started out in June 2020, early June 2020. So we complete 4 years, and thank you for being there. Some of you have been there with us right from our first session to now, and it is indeed a privilege for us that the entire medical fraternity, whether it is Dr. Rajiva Gupta from Gurgaon, from Delhi NCR, or doctors from Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Pune, who have been there with us on a regular basis. So thank you to the medical fraternity. Thank you to all the people who are concerned with the medical fraternity, who facilitate these sessions for us. So thank you very much once again. Dr. Gupta, as always, the Evergreen Club is there. There are quite a few sessions which happen every day, thrice a day, 3 times a day, and it's there every day of the week. Our health live session, as you know, happens every Saturday at 5 p.m. Our seniors have challenge happens on Wednesday evenings, and the 15th season is on right now. We've just had one session of the 15th season. The second session is there. So please do log in and connect with us with our various sessions. All of them are there for you to access without any problems whatsoever. Thank you very much again, Dr. Rajiv Gupta, for this.
Yeah.
And thank you, all of you. We will be back once again next Saturday at 5 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.